Tonight for tea then, I thought I would do a sausage casserole. It is so quick and so easy. You can either do it on the hob and let it simmer away on the hob for about 40 minutes, or you can put it into the oven at about 180 degrees for about an hour, or I'm going to put mine in my slow cooker and forget about it for about 3 hours on a low heat. So first thing I've done is I've taken some sausages and I've put them in the oven just to get some colour on them. They are not cooked yet and they aren't ready to eat, but what I've done is just given them a bit of colour. Otherwise, if you don't brown the sausages off, then if you're going to slow cook, they do look a little bit anemic. The other thing that's quite nice is some of the fat has come off the sausages, and so it's great that that's staying in the dish there and not going into the slow cooker and what we eat. So sausages go into the slow cooker. To the sausages, then I'm going to add 1 onion that I've chopped up and about 2 cloves of garlic that I've chopped up as well, so they're going to both go in. And then I've taken some thyme. I happen to have some thyme in the garden just growing, so I've got about 4-5 sprigs of thyme, which I'm just going to pull the leaves off and put those in. Now if your thyme is quite soft at the moment because it's the growing season of it, then you might find that some of the bits pull off at the top, and that's okay, just break those up as well, they can all go in. As thyme gets woodier, you really don't want the stalks to go in, but I'm trying to get the harder bit, the tougher bit of the stalks off as I'm doing this. But most of this is new growth this year. Lovely, so a few sprigs of thyme will go in. To that then I'm going to add a tin of chopped tomatoes. That seems to be a staple for most things in life. I'm going to add also a tin, I use taco beans because they've got like a chilli sauce around them, so they've got a bit of spicing. But if you haven't, then just a tin of mixed beans is absolutely fine. That goes in. Now the thing with the tin tomatoes and the taco beans is that it's quite difficult to get everything out of the bottom. So you can either use some cold water out the tap, would be sensible. As I've got a kettle here, I'm just going to get some of those juices from inside the tin so that I get all the flavour of the tin and it's none is wasted. And that's just going to go in, so that's probably about half a tin of water's gone in there. Got some tomato puree. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of puree in this. I don't have any pork stock cubes, so what I'm going to use is some vegetable stock. This is just the same as a stock cube, it's just in a powder form, so I'm going to put about a teaspoon of that in, which is about 1 vegetable stock cube, if you've got that. The last thing I'm going to add is some Worcester sauce. Now if you don't have Worcester sauce, or if you do have some red wine at home, some red wine would be really nice in this. I don't have any red wine, and the Worcester sauce will just give it a bit of a kick of flavour, so I'm going to put some of that in, probably about a tablespoon. And that is it. I'm going to give this a stir around, just so that the beans are all mixed around and it isn't like a lump of tomatoes all in one place, or the beans are all in one place. And then it's going to go on. Now, like I said, I'm going to leave this in a slow cooker for about 3 hours, but about an hour before I'm wanting to serve this, I'm going to make some cheesy cheese and onion chutney sort of stuffed dumplings to go on this. So about an hour before this is finished, so in about 2 hours time, I'm going to rejoin you and I'm going to show you how to make the dumplings. If you are cooking this in the oven and you put it in for 180 degrees for about an hour or so, then for about the last 30 or 40 minutes you want to put the dumpling on top. So I might maybe give it half an hour and then make your dumplings and pop it on top for about 40 minutes. If you're making it on the hob, probably not quite so easy to make the dumplings. So this now just goes on, and I'll rejoin you when it's time to make the cheese and onion chutney dumplings. Thank you. So after my sausage casserole has been cooking for about 2 hours in the slow cooker, obviously if you're doing that in the oven, you'll probably want to cook it for maybe 40 minutes until you get to this stage. I'm going to make some dumplings for it now. It's kind of a cross between scones and dumplings. Goes on the top and finishes cooking with the sausage casserole. So I've got 275 grams of self-raising flour in the bowl. If you haven't got self-raising flour, then 225 grams of plain flour and half a teaspoon of baking powder will be the same us using self-raising. I've then got 100 grams of suet. I happen to be using vegetable suet there, so I'm just going to stir that in with a knife that I'd use for butter bread. Now if you wanted to, you could save some of the thyme that I put into the slow cooker earlier, and you could put some thyme in this as well, so it gives it a bit of extra colour. That's your choice. I haven't saved any thyme, so I'm not going to do that. And to this I'm going to add about 125 mils of water. You might need a bit more, you might not need all of it, so I'm going to save about a tablespoon of the water, and I'm just going to stir this together. And I'm wanting this to form quite a hard dough, so it'll be able to be rolled out, but not so soft that I would have to not be able to roll it out. So I'm definitely going to need that last bit of water, because at the moment I've just got lumps forming, not quite there yet. So last bit of water's going in. And I can see that I'm going to also need a little bit more water, so I'm just going to get some more cold water. And just add a little bit at a time till I get a dough that I can roll out. So that's probably another tablespoon gone in. It's starting to come together, but I can still see quite a lot of loose flour at the bottom of this. So I'm just going to add probably another tablespoon of water. So that's probably about 30 ml extra water that I've added to this. Different flours will absorb different amounts of water, so it's always best to add it gradually. Right, I think that feels about there. So at this stage, I've got some quite large lumps forming. I'm just going to go in with my hand and just bring this together. And then that can go onto the worktop. I'm going to move these bits out of the way. Now if your dough is particularly sticky, you might need to use a little bit of the extra flour to roll this out, but I think at the moment this is looking okay. Just trying to bring it together, which is why it's going absolutely everywhere. Not deliberately trying to knead it, I'm just trying to bring it together. Right, so I've got a ball of dough here, so I'm going to divide it in two, and I want one of the balls to be ever so slightly smaller, and you'll see why in a moment. Now you're going to roll this out. So rolling pin on the ready. And you want to roll it as circular as you can. If it starts to stick, you can just use a little bit of flour down on the surface and a bit of flour on top of your... Put a little bit out, then I might have to keep reaching back for flour. There we are. So just going to roll this out into a circle. There we go. Now it does look a little bit odd at this stage because the suet that's in there is like little pellets almost in shape, and so it does look a little bit odd as you roll it out. There are dimples in the mixture. So this is the slightly larger piece. So I need it to be ever so slightly bigger than the first circle I've made, if possible. I think if I look at those, they are just ever so, that one there, second one is a little bit bigger, which is what I'm after. We'll just try and make it a little bit more that way. Right, then I want the slightly smaller circle in front of me, and then you're going to take 75 grams of cheese that's grated, which I've done, and you're going to add some chutney to it, or some pickle, whatever you seem to have at home. If I had some mango chutney, I probably would use that. I have absolutely nothing in other than what's been left over from Christmas. It's still in good edible order, otherwise I wouldn't be using it. So I'm going to use probably 3 very generous teaspoons of the onion chutney and stir this together. You can absolutely add more. Like I say, if I had mango chutney I would be adding that in, but I don't. Then you take this mixture and you spread it on the inside of this circle, the smaller circle of the two, and you want to try and leave about 3 centimetres around the edge. So there's going to be a little gap where this will join together. So Just going to spread that around a little bit. Like I say, leaving a little gap around the edge so that this can join. And the idea now is that we're going to make a little parcel. And the cheese and the pickle is going to be on the inside of the parcel. So that when these dumplings cook, or this scone type mixture cooks, the cheese will melt and it will become a really lovely addition to your dish. You then take the slightly larger circle and you lay that over the top. The reason it is slightly larger is so that it will cover over the top of the cheese and pickle mix, which that's done nicely, and you press around the edges. And then you take your knife that you've used to butter your bread. It doesn't matter if there's bits hanging over, like here there's a bit hanging over, it's fine, it'll just be a little bit of extra dumpling without any filling in it. You're going to mark this so that when this comes out the oven, you'll be able to see roughly where the slices are for this. So I'm dividing it into 6, there's 3 people in our house. And then the last little stage is I'm going to wash my hands. And I'm actually going to bring my slow cooker out and show you the next little bit of adding it. I only hope I've made this the right size, because obviously my slow cooker is oval in shape. So let's put the slow cooker on there. It should be okay because it's a tiled surface, so it should be okay for heat. And then going to place this this dumpling mix on the top. So you might want to have a little look over the top and see this going in. So that just slides on top there. And then if you're able to get some of this gravy that's been formed and sort of does tend to come to the surface, and just paint that over the top a little bit. It'll give a nice colour, but it also has a bit of extra flavour to this dumpling. Oh, there's a bit of a bean there, that can go back in. So as you can see, that's pretty much got a bit of a coating all round there. So obviously you would not need to take your slow cooker out of its cooking unit, but I'm going to put that back in now. The lid's going to go on. And then I'm going to let that cook now for about another hour. What I'm looking for is for the dumpling to be cooked through. I don't want it to be still dough. Dumplings are quite soft anyway, but I don't want it to be dough-like in the middle. So I'm going to let it cook for about another hour. I'll have a look and judge the dumpling for when it's cooked before I then pull it out the slow cooker and serve up. If you're cooking your dumpling in the oven, you're going to be cooking your actual sausage casserole probably at about 180, and you probably want your dumpling to cook for about 40 minutes in the oven. So a little bit less time because it's probably a much higher heat in the oven. I'll bring it out when it's cooked and I'll show you what it looks like at the end then. Thank you. So the sausage casserole with the dumpling topping has been cooking now. The dumpling topping's been on there for about an hour. I had the lid on the slow cooker. If you're baking this in the oven, you could actually take the lid off and this would brown a little bit, but obviously in a slow cooker that's never going to happen. The dumpling has had probably just over an hour. I'm then going to just cut through the marks that I scored earlier. And then hopefully these will come out like little almost slices of pizza almost. Obviously I'm not pizza. But I'm just going to loosen them at the edges around this side. And then that gets served with whatever you want to put potato wise, if you're doing potatoes with this. And then you've obviously got the sausage casserole underneath, so just lifting that dumpling out so that you can have a little look at that. You can see then inside there you've got the cheese, you've also got the pickle in there, and that should hopefully be a nice addition to your sausage casserole. I hope you enjoy that one. Thank you.